I'm excited. Today we're starting a new series called Jesus Verified. Verified. Who knows what verified means? Anybody? Think of social media. What does it mean on social media? I know all of you are like super social media freaks, right? Always on social media. Here's what verified means. Instagram verification, that's what I'm going to talk about right now. It means establishing your Instagram account as the authentic presence of a notable public figure, celebrity, or global brand. So an Instagram verified account gets a verified badge, and you might see it as like a little blue badge next to Will Smith right there. See the little check mark next to him? That means that's his real account. It's not the phony. There might be tons of accounts there, but how do you know which one is the real one? That's how you know. Now, me and you, we may not need a verified Instagram account. I doubt there's many people trying to be us, probably, so there's not some confusion. But when it comes to God, higher authority, power, Jesus, there are tons of people out there. Tons of people out there that are phonies. There are tons of people that say, I am the way, and they're not the way. There are tons of ideas out there. So how do we know that the Jesus we're following is the right one? And that's kind of what this whole series is about. Jesus Verified. Now, this last person that we have on the screen is Steven Furtick. And, how do you, if you guys know who Steven Furtick is, he's the pastor of a huge mega church. If you listen to worship music, Elevation Worship, that's the worship band from his church. And so there was a cool story. We have a pastor on staff. His name is John Latore, and he was at Moody Bible Institute this past week for some event. I forgot what he was there for, but he was standing in the commons area, and this guy the student was like staring at him weird, like when someone's staring at you and it's kind of a little awkward. And so he just kept looking at him. And so finally he walks up to Pastor Johnny and goes, "Are you Steven Furtick?" And Pastor Johnny goes, "Yes, I am." All right, so here's Pastor John Latore. Put a picture of him and his wife up there. They lead our New Life Humble Park location, okay? That's Pastor Johnny. Now put the side-by-side Pastor Johnny and Steven Furtick, all right? So this student comes up to him and says, "Are you Steven Furtick?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." And the kid's like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Why are you here?" He goes, "Oh, I'm actually speaking at chapel today." The kid's freaking out, right? Wants a picture. So one of our elders from New Life Midway, who's a Chicago police officer, his name's Eric Reyes, he was with him, Pastor Johnny. So Pastor Johnny says, "Eric, take a picture for this kid, right? Take a picture." So the kid's like super happy, right? Probably a freshman, doesn't know what he's talking about, right? and takes a picture and then posts it on his Instagram. Show the picture. So cool to meet at Steven Furtick today. Look at Pastor Johnny's face. I mean, that is he is bloodshot red. He knows that he's lying. And the best part was he left that kid thinking that, right? So he walks away. And him and Eric Reyes are walking in the tunnels over there at Moody. And Eric goes, "Why did that kid want a picture of you?" And Pastor Johnny's like, "Dude, he thought I was Steven Furtick." And then Eric Reyes is like, "Who's Steven Furtick?" So he had to show him who he was. And finally, they're laughing in the tunnels. And about 20 minutes later, Pastor Johnny couldn't take it. So he comes back to the commons area, finds that kid sitting with a girl in the kind of the little desks there, tables there, and just breaks the news that he's not Steven Furtick, right? Super funny. That poor kid, he was never going to leave it down, but we hate that feeling, right? You ever felt that feeling like you've been duped, right? You've been duped. You've been sold a false bag of goods, like what somebody told you isn't true, false information, right? Oh, man, that's the worst feeling. And sometimes it's inconsequential. Sometimes it's not a big deal, right? Sometimes it's not a big deal. Like you find out your brand name T-shirt is actually a knockoff, right? My brother right now is overseas, and he was texting me. He goes, "Hey, what do you want from where I'm at?" And I said, "I don't know. What are they known for?" And he said, "Fake stuff." I said, "Okay." Then he goes, "You want a Rollie?" I was like, "Sure." I want a fake Rolex, right? So sometimes it's inconsequential like that, or you find out that like fast food chicken nuggets is not made of real chicken. I know. Sorry. If you just found that out, I'm sorry. We're not going to talk about what it's really made of because that's a different sermon. But Or what about, you're the kid and you find out that the guy you thought was Stephen Furtick is not Stephen Furtick, right? It's inconsequential. But the worst. Here's the worst, okay? The absolute worst. It's one of the reasons why Josh isn't here today. Real talk, okay? You find out that the person you hired is a Cubs fan. Terrible. So we sent them to Blue Island. See ya later, dude. No, I'm kidding. It's why I start every new conversation with that qualifying question. Are you a Cubs or Sox fan? So I know not to invest too much into this relationship if it goes the other way. I'm kidding. But sometimes when you're duped, sometimes when the information that you get, this false information, this sense of trickery, it sends you into shambles. It breaks the ground that you're standing on. Your world falls apart. You find out that your best friend has been stabbing you in the back. Maybe that best friend was your spouse. You learn, how about this one? You learn that you have more family members than you were told. How about that one? Right? You discover an affair, pornography, or an addiction of some kind from someone that you knew and trusted. I have a friend right now who's going through a really difficult time, and to find out that his spouse has moved on and they're still married. That's really difficult. That type of news shatters you. When what you thought you knew, what you've been following on Instagram, it was a fake. It was a fake account. It wasn't the real one. And suddenly the foundation of everything we thought we knew seems to crumble. Now there's consequences, right? Of course, this is far-reaching consequences in other areas of our life, which is why it matters so much. And the good news is that we're not the only one. We're not the only ones that are looking for something genuine. For a long time I've been saying, I think people, when they come to church, they're just looking for something real. They're not looking for this over-processed, super overproduced show. But they're just looking for a real relationship with God. I want to know that Jesus is God, that I can talk to him, that he will hear me, he will answer my prayer. That's really all I really need. I don't need smoke and mirrors and bells and whistles. I need something real. That's what I need. I believe our world is starving for that. And we're not the only ones looking for that. We're not the only ones longing for real truth, especially in the most important matters like Jesus. The truth of Jesus. And him being verified as God. There are those in our world, in our culture today, that don't see Jesus as God. They have him as a great person, a prophet, a good man, maybe an angel, but they don't see him as God. What makes Jesus God? If you're taking notes today, hopefully on the back of your bulletin, there's a space for you to write down. Write this down. I don't have a lot of points today. You'll be happy for that, so church might be quick. But here's the first point. What makes Jesus God? As we're verifying this, as we're scrolling, looking for the verified Jesus. Who is the real Jesus? Meeting the resurrected Jesus verifies his claim to being God. Meeting the resurrected Jesus. We're going to be talking about the different kinds of Jesuses that we follow. Right? The form of Jesus you might be following might be the one that was handed down to you. And you've blindly been, it's just somebody that you know. It's been grandfathered in, but you've never really looked into it. You've never really explored it. But meeting the resurrected Jesus verifies his claim to being God. And to show you this count, we're going to go to an old book, all right? An old book, and a letter that was written in the 1st century. Talk about that. That's really cool. 1st century account by the physician. His name is Luke. Now, Luke is in the New Testament. It's the 3rd book of the New Testament. So if you turn there, we're going to be in Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. And so we're not just looking at the Bible. So I know you have a Bible and all these books and letters are put together, but before the Bible was put together, this was a real historical document. This letter was really written by Luke, a physician, to a guy named Theophilus, right? And he really is writing this. It's an account. And there's many others. But listen to what Luke does. And the reason why I think it's important for us not to diminish where this letter came from, because writing something down in this time was not easy. So when you wrote something down, you definitely had money, and you definitely had skill. It was an expensive and labor-intensive thing to do, to write something down. And apparently there was a bunch of people writing about this no-name guy living in a back town who was preaching this news, and they thought it was important to write this down, what he said and what he did. So it's like wasting money on something that's not important, right? Or it's putting everything I got to make sure that this gets recorded. And that's really what this is. They thought there was something compelling. There was something that happened that they would go into this expensive and labor-intensive process of making sure that this got written down. So it really warrants our attention. What does this first century letter say about the person of Jesus? About the person of Jesus. So Luke chapter 1, 1 through 4. Says, inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative. This is Luke talking. And so what he's saying right here is that Luke isn't the only one. There was many. That's a key word in that verse right there. Many. Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative. It wasn't just this one guy commissioning one work for his own curiosity. There was a group of people saying, hey, we need to get this down. We need to document this. And as much as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things that have been accomplished among us. Among us would be the key word there. This is what happened. This isn't what someone handed down to me generations ago. No, this is what happened. I just witnessed this. This is what happened. We don't know how many, but people wrote, but probably more than us, and we don't know how many people were there, but it was definitely multiple people, hence the word us. There was witnesses. He goes on to say, just in verse 2, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word have delivered them to us. So Luke didn't just make this up. He had eyewitnesses to the accounts that are written in this letter, and he went to them. He was a doctor. He was thorough. There was something about his procedure, his process, that was meticulous. I'm not just going to take somebody's word for it. I'm going to go and investigate. Verse 3, it seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, that you may have certainty concerning the things you have been taught. So the physician Luke went through a rigorous process of writing these things down. And he wasn't the only one. But he spent time with eyewitnesses, people who were really there, going and verifying these things that happened, talking to first-hand account people about what is written in this letter about the person of Jesus. Why? Because something profound happened. We're talking about what makes Jesus verifiably God. And that's exactly what Luke was doing. He is verifying for us, for Theophilus, but also for us. You can have certainty about the person of Jesus because I've gone through this work. This is not happening, hundreds of years later. This is happening right then. Spending time with those who said, yes, I walked with Jesus. I saw Jesus. I heard this. This is what happened. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And it's preserved for us. We have it today. You're going to read this right now. So as what we hold in our hands, we should have reverence for as the Word of God, especially when we're talking about the person of Jesus. There was something compelling and worth telling. And this is what it was. There was a man named Jesus who claimed to be God. There was a man named Jesus who claimed to be God. And the thing that substantiated his claim, the thing that we're going to read about today, the thing that substantiated his claim to be God is that he rose from the grave. He rose from the grave. Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, claimed to be God, and what substantiated that was he actually rose from the grave. You know, there's absolutely no other person who has done that. There is no other person who has claimed to be God and is still here, alive, to claim it still. In fact, all of those gods are still dead with their claim. Jesus is the one that has an empty tomb. And we can go into, all of these other things. We can talk about first century writers. We can give other documents, from first, second, third century writers that also confirm that the tomb was empty, that Jesus raised from the dead and was witness to other people that when he was resurrected. All of that is something that we can dive into, but information isn't what's gonna change my heart here. The fact is, the issue of the empty tomb is not an issue anymore. Even scholars believe and accept it. The Jewish writers of that day confessed that the tomb was empty. They were conspiring that maybe somebody stole the body. So in that statement, they're verifying that the tomb was empty. We're not here to debate the facts, because I'm sure you guys just would love facts, right? Just tons and tons of facts, and that's going to warm your heart. Yeah, no, right? See, I don't believe that it's going to be facts. In fact, I would say interaction, not information, creates belief in relationship. When we talk about how is Jesus verifiably God, I don't think I can woo you with facts into having a relationship with God. And from the Gospel of Luke, we're going to see that that was not even the case for the disciples. Interaction, not information, with God, I would say, creates belief and relationship. Here's the claim. Jesus died. This is true. Right? There's other accounts that say this. Jesus died. This is true. And then 3 days later, Jesus rose, resurrected from the dead. Angels confirmed this with Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, at the empty tomb. Angels showed to them and told them, he's not here. Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's alive. And then these angels send these women back to the disciples to tell them this information. Right? In Luke 24, which you can turn to there, that's where we're going to spend most of our day today. Luke 24 kind of holds this account, and they go back and they say, an angel came to us and told us this, and that Jesus is alive, and the tomb was empty, and yada, yada, yada. And the disciples, all 11 of them, said, nah. They didn't believe it. Here is firsthand account, testimony of the resurrected Jesus, angels talking to them, and the disciples, the 11 that were walking with Jesus this entire time are like, nah, fake news, right? I don't believe it. Luke 24 verses 11 and 12 says, but these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. How many of us are like that? See, information isn't going to compel me. You can tell me why I shouldn't eat Doritos all day long, but guess what? I'm going to eat Doritos because they taste good, right? Even though you can start a fire by lighting one Dorito on fire and it will stay lit, right? Even though I know that information, it doesn't change. It doesn't change me. Information doesn't sway our hearts. It informs us, yeah, and some of us make wise decisions, some of us, Most of us don't. Most of us don't care about that. And here the disciples were getting firsthand information, accurate information, fresh information. No one's actually even heard it. They're the first ones to hear it, and they reject it. Nah. I don't believe it. Especially my boy Peter, right? Look at verses 12. Then Peter rose and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in, and he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and he went home marveling at what had happened. So he didn't believe these ladies. He ran there to see it himself, and he sees an empty tomb, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go home now. Right? It didn't do anything. It says he marveled, but he didn't get it. Either the disciples, they still had not gotten it. How do I know this? How do we know this? Because Luke 24 continues after the resurrection account. And it goes right to these two guys. And this is a story I really want to stick on today. He goes right to the story of these two followers of Jesus. Two guys that hoped in Jesus. One was named Cleopas. Right? I don't know what the other guy's name is. It doesn't say. But they're walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus is where they're from. And they're super down. I mean, think about this. Jesus, the guy they've been following, the one that they hope would be the Messiah, to come and conquer and rule and lead Jerusalem and bring peace to their people, is dead. He's dead. Just days earlier, Jesus said there is no greater love than this, that he would lay down his life for his friends. And now Jesus is dead. He died on a cross, and they don't get it. They don't understand. They feel like they've been duped. They feel like they've been following this Jesus and it didn't work. You know how many times I've heard people gone to church or try reading the Bible? Yeah, I tried that. Jesus, it just didn't work. Church didn't work. I don't know what that means, but you did it wrong. That's pretty much what I would say about that, right? It's okay, you can answer that. And so they go and they're feeling like, man, I've been following this Jesus and he's dead. What a letdown. What a letdown. What do I think about this? And they're walking on their way, and then all of a sudden, and we'll pick up here in Luke chapter 24 verses 13 through 35. In verse 15, actually, it says, while they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. Now, we could read this, and was this before the resurrection, after the resurrection? When did this take place? Right? But I think the thing that we need to understand here is that at this moment, it was the resurrected Jesus that was drawing near to them as they were walking on this road to Emmaus, living life with their head down, like, you know that look, like my dog died look, the sad face, when they're distraught. And he said to them in verse 17, basically, what are you guys talking about? What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk? And it said that they stood still, looking sad. So they're walking, Jesus comes up on the scene, asks them this question, hey guys, what are you talking about? And they stop, and they're just like looking sad. And then Cleopas said something funny. He goes, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem? Like, who doesn't know the things that have happened in these days? And Jesus says, well, what things? I love it. It's just kind of reeling it in here. And then they go on to say, well, Jesus, of Nazareth, and we had hoped that he was the real one, that he was the Messiah, that he would bring peace and save us, and he's dead now. And this is how we know that this is the resurrected Jesus, because then he says in verse 22, moreover, right, he goes, it's been the third day since these things happened. So this was not years later. This was right then, in the moment. The third day, they're having a conversation with Jesus. The third day after he was crucified and buried in a tomb, they're having a conversation with Jesus. And then they say, moreover, some women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early in the morning, meaning that day. They were at the tomb this morning, and they did not find his body. They came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. So these two guys, man, this is just so accurate to the human condition. These two guys, followers of Jesus, walked with Jesus, saw Jesus face to face. He gets crucified. There's an account, first-hand account, that he resurrected angels, messengers telling them that an angel came and talked to them and said that Jesus is alive, and they're like, nah, he's dead. He's dead. It's over. It's over. You know, we had hoped, but it's just not true. He's dead. And Jesus is with them, and they don't even recognize it. See, their interaction with Jesus was beginning something. It was starting something. And there's great anticipation. And so Jesus says, man, you know, he basically says, oh, you guys don't have any faith. Don't you know what the prophet said? Like, this had to happen. And then, this is really cool. Talk about taking like a theology class with Jesus. It says that he started beginning with Moses and all the prophets. He interpreted them to them in all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. Let me tell you about this great man named Jesus. And he starts breaking down the scriptures and talking about the prophets and everything that they wrote. And he's explaining it to them. And he's bringing clarity. But it's the person of Jesus that makes this possible. See, because they already knew this stuff. They had already read these scriptures. They already knew what the prophets said. They knew this. From a young age, they were taught this. It wasn't that they never had a Bible, what they would call a Bible maybe. They had it, but it was who was revealing it that made the difference. And so, you know, they're enamored with Jesus, this person they don't know. He's teaching them all this stuff. And so they get to Emmaus, and it made it seem like Jesus was going to keep going. They're like, no, stay with us. Stay with us, please. It's dark already. Like, it's a long way. Why don't you stay with us? And so Jesus stays with them. He's at the dinner table. It's pretty cool, you know. And verse 30. When he was at the table with them, he took the bread and blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And he vanished from their sight. I mean, this was the moment that changed everything. Jesus had already been resurrected, but the moment that changed it for these disciples, for these believers, wasn't when they heard something. Wasn't when they got a bullet list of facts. I'm a fact person. I like facts. I like information. I need data in order to make a decision, right? But that isn't what changed everything. What changed everything was they met Jesus. When they met and spoke with the resurrected Jesus. See, if this didn't happen, if Jesus wasn't talking to them in his resurrected state, then they would probably still be thinking, man, I wonder what happened with the body. Those crazy Jewish people, they stole his body, right? And the Jewish are like, man, these disciples, they stole the body. Right? We wouldn't know. They would still be sad. They would still be walking like it's over. He's dead. We don't even know where his body's at. You know, I've been failed. I've been let down. I've been duped. But that's not what happened. Something amazing happened. Something life-changing happened. They met Jesus. When I think about this account, when I think about the disciples, these two men walking on the road to Emmaus, and they encounter Jesus, and Jesus is the one that makes clear the scriptures, talking about himself, revealing himself to these two men in his resurrected state. I think about this verse, and it comes to me in a different way. Romans 10:17 says, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. And I think about what's happening in that moment.
I'm here.
Breaks. It's not about a theology class or a degree of being a Bible scholar or anything like that that is going to convince you. It is interaction, not information, that changes our hearts. Meeting the resurrected Jesus verifies his claim on being God, because there is no other person that could do that. Only God could meet you after dying, being buried for 3 days, and resurrecting. Only God could come face to face and meet you. And Jesus is that person. So Jesus is God because he resurrected from the dead. And there is no other person, no other God, anybody who claims to do that is still living today that can substantiate that claim. I love what they say in verse 32. So like this, what happens, right? So Jesus breaks bread, which we're going to do in just a moment. He took communion with them, which is awesome. You know, he did that right before he was betrayed. But he broke bread, he blessed it, and their eyes were revealed. This interaction with the resurrected Jesus did something that some spiritual formation class can't do. Going to a Bible class or Sunday school your whole life won't do. Going to church every single week as a cultural Christian, because that's what you're supposed to do, it's not going to do that. You can do all those things till you're blue in the face, and it will not change you. But when you meet the resurrected Jesus, that will change everything. They said to each other, verse 32, they said to each other, did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road? While he opened to us the scriptures? And then they rose that same hour. So they just walked the whole day to Emmaus from Jerusalem, right? It said it was about, it was a couple hours. I can't remember how far, but I think it was like 7 hours or something like that. Walk. That's a long walk, right? And they go right back. Like, we got to go back right now to go to the disciples, and that's what they do. They found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, the Lord has risen indeed. The Lord has risen indeed. Now, as I thought about, this series that we're starting today, how do we verify that Jesus, the verified Jesus? How do we know that we're following the right one? We have to first deal with the issue of Jesus being God. It's pointless to move forward if we don't kind of correct our thinking on that, if we are not absolutely certain of that. And we can figure out and gather all these ancient documents that tell the history, until we're blue in the face, but that won't change you. You know why? Because information doesn't change my stubborn heart. I don't know about you. Information doesn't change my stubborn heart, and you're not going to overwhelm my pride with facts, and it's not going to birth change in me. Some people say, the older you get set in your ways. You know what I'm talking about? Right? I'm going to do what I want because I want to. Right? I've earned the right to do what I want. Right? You're not going to change that person. If they've done something this way all the time, you may not be able to change that person. Why? Because we want and we think what we think. At the end of the day, people do what they want. But that's not what makes our hearts burn. See, it isn't facts or information, although that's helpful, and we need that. We need the truth. We need to be told the truth. We need to proclaim the truth. We need to read the truth. But information doesn't regenerate people. Information doesn't make something that's dead alive. So there's only one way. And that's meeting the resurrected Jesus. What makes our hearts burn within us with certainty is the revelation of Jesus who reveals it. Now, how many of you are looking at this story of Emmaus, right? And you're like, man, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there. Jesus being the first people that he shows himself to. Resurrected, and they didn't even get it. They didn't even get it. These were not lost people. These were his disciples. These were his followers. That would be like saying the people in this room who claim to be Christians, but we don't get it. There is no substitute for a relationship with Jesus. There is no substitute. You can take your religion and it's going to fail you. It's going to leave you wanting. It's going to leave you at the judgment seat of Christ and saying, away from me, I never knew you. and all your good works and your charity and all the things that you do nice for people, and all of that will burn away. But the one thing that changes everything, the one thing that substantiates the claim on being God, is a resurrected Jesus, and that Jesus you can meet. Just like these disciples met him on the road to Emmaus. It was Jesus that walked with them. It was Jesus that explained the scriptures concerning himself. Like reading hey, read that right there. Yeah, that's about me. That's about me. Clarifying this, right? So the question is this: what Jesus do you know? What Jesus do you know? Bless you. What Jesus do you know? Because there's a lot of fake ones out there. There's a lot of fake ones out there. Here's the sad reality. Just like these disciples didn't know that Jesus was talking to them, some of us in this room, we wouldn't know the resurrected Jesus if we met him, because we've been following a fake one for years. We've been following the Jesus that was handed down to us, the Jesus that is convenient for my lifestyle, the Jesus that lets me do whatever I want, the Jesus that loves me only the way that I want to be loved. The Jesus that answers my wishes when I ask. The Jesus that promises me comfort and not heartache. The Jesus that gives me everything and expects nothing. Some of us have this weak, fake version of Jesus. You're following a Jesus that isn't the real Jesus. And he's been trying to meet you and you don't recognize him. He isn't verified in your mind because you haven't met him. You haven't interacted with the resurrected Jesus. You're still holding on to the Easter Bunny Jesus. The Santa Claus Jesus. This fairy tale that I believed when I was a kid because I was told to. This version of God that I inherited going because my parents wanted me to be have faith, so they put me in a Catholic or Christian school where it was taught to me. And yeah, you have some knowledge of God. You may know about God. And that might be great, and so did these disciples, but they didn't recognize, they saw the Messiah in the scriptures, but they didn't recognize the Messiah in front of their face. Because what they thought was actually not verified. It wasn't the Jesus that they were thinking about. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. Their version of Jesus was wrong. Some of us have we're following the wrong account, the wrong, account of Jesus. And it was handed down to us. I'm going to go ahead and invite the worship team to come up. We're going to take communion in just a moment. But before we do, what if this morning we talk about Jesus being verifiably God? If you have any doubt, if there's a question in your mind, if you have not solidified this thought in your head, in your heart, then today is the day that we can do that. Today is the day. What if you took a bold step this morning to muster up enough faith to ask Jesus this morning, Jesus, help my unbelief? Well, what does that look like? How do I meet the resurrected Jesus? Well, I can't tell you that it's cookie cutter because I don't think it is. Jesus met these two guys on the road to Emmaus. I'm not saying we all need to go to, on the road to Emmaus in order to have this encounter with Jesus. There are people that think that. They think, I need to go to this certain place in order to encounter God. I believe we can encounter Jesus, fully God, right here, right now. That's what I believe. I believe the scriptures teach us that. But let me tell you how it was for me. I was 13 years old. I come from a broken family. My father had just gotten out of prison. My mom was a single mom with 5 kids. I was getting into a lot of trouble. My heart was hard and angry. And I went to a Bible study, which I didn't want to go to. All right? So if anybody here doesn't like going to small groups, I'm with you. I was one of those people. You know, I didn't want to go. My mom made me go. She said, if you want to live here, you have to go. So kind of made it hard to not go. And I went for a couple times, and then I think it was like the second or third time, I gave my life to Jesus. Did I know what I was doing fully? Probably not, but I knew this. This is what I knew, and this is where I would maybe invite you to think about for your own life. I knew that I needed saving. I knew that my life statistically wasn't going to be great. The direction that I was headed was probably not going to be good. In fact, I really didn't have any real dreams of making it past 18. My friends were dying. Grew up in the Pilsen area, and I just didn't see any hope. I was 13 years old. And I remember praying this prayer. Now, my journey after that was long, but it took me to a point where I just said, Jesus, I believe that you're the Son of God who died and rose again for me. I believe that you are fully man and fully God. And I need you to meet me. There's a really cheesy song way back in the day. It says, I want to know you. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you more. I say cheesy because now it's old, but back in the day, man, that was my jam. I want to know you, God. It was the cry of my heart. God, I just want to know you. I want to know you. I don't want to just know about you. I want to know you. I want to know that when I speak to you, that you hear me, that you answer my prayer, not because I'm rubbing some lamp and treating you like a genie, but because you love me and I love you. I want to know the God of the universe. There must be more than this. So today, I don't know, and for that day, I remember leaving, and just like these disciples, there was a burning in my heart. There was something inside of me that was notably different. My behaviors were not, but I was getting there. But there was something different inside of me, and so today, I just want to take a few moments. I don't know where you're at. That's not even the issue. We're here. You got to this place somehow today. You're here. So let's make the most of this opportunity. So I just want everybody to close their eyes. Close their eyes. If you're helping with communion, you can go ahead and get ready to help. But if you're here this morning, and maybe you're recognizing this morning that the version of Jesus you've been following isn't the real one. Maybe there's a void inside of your heart right now because you are not convinced that you've met or talked or encountered the real Jesus, the resurrected Jesus. You haven't had this type of interaction. Your faith is built on information. I would ask you this morning to really consider. And it's a bold step, but it's also a step of humility. It's also a step of faith. A bold step to step out and say, God, I am making the first step towards you. I am asking you, Jesus, to verify to me. Not through some signs and wonders, not through information overload, but meet me here today. Speak to me in a way that no other person could. And give me something new, that I would know the real you, Jesus. Not a handed down version of faith. Not some cultural Christianity wrapped in a nice bow. But I would know you. I think about Peter who didn't believe. I think about Thomas who needed to feel. He needed to feel Jesus' hands because he doubted. I think we're all there. We start there. I want to believe, but help my unbelief. I want to believe. I want to know. But there's just something. There's something that's stopping me from moving forward, and I don't know what it is. Maybe God didn't save my dying parent. Maybe God didn't answer my prayer when I asked for it, so I've stopped. I tried Jesus, it didn't work.